It's Friday, it's April 12th, 2024. I'm in Queens. Um, the property magazines look like this when I went. I think that they might be up to the purple edition, but I couldn't get my hands on it. So this is what I have from past editions. Um, Inside Queens, but the one that's inside of United States of America with a Federal Reserve note, an ONE, and an In God We Trust. Um, there's Jackson with the White House. There's Hamilton with the U.S. Treasury. And there is Franklin with the Independence Hall. Um, So I'm going through some medical issues that I can't seem to rectify on my own. It's not passing. It's been a long amount of time with this like increased bloat. I've decreased caloric intake. I was increasing activity. It's just not dissipating. The doctor's not giving me guidance. Um, I've had several series of medical events. Um, Lastly is I went for a cranial scan, a CT scan of the cranium. Everything by anatomy looks fine. Some of the blood results came back like the TSH was too high out of nowhere. Like things just randomly go off. My legs are having a problem again, almost like seizing up, but I'm very stiff in movement. I can't seem to drop this weight. I spoke to the doctor about it. There's been a lot of drug commercials about weight loss drug that's been very successful for some. Um, and so I have decreased caloric intake. I'm trying to do the exercise to build my routine and regimen back up so I can get back to work. Um, but while I'm here, it is it is pain it, like quality of life is so drastically reduced, and it's pain it's painstaking. It's pain in every movement, like by kinesthesiology. And again, I don't want to sit here and complain about it daily. That's not what this is intended for. But the doctor suggested I go to the pharmacy because she said even if I did prescribe it for you, she says there is such a back order. They're just not carrying the medicine that you would need for the weight loss treatment or for the diabetic treatment. So she said, can you do me a favor? She says, can you go to the pharmacy and ask them if they carry it? Ask them if they've gotten it in, and ask when they anticipate having it in. So I did. I went to Rite Aid like I was asked by the doctor. And the Rite Aid pharmacist said that they put an order in daily for like supply chain, I suppose, in how much demand for this level of drug is needed by the general's public. I guess to measure weights and measures of the system that's existing here in the zip code that I'm in. She said that it's just not coming in, or it's not coming in regularly. She then suggested that I go to a smaller pharmacy, which I did. And at the smaller pharmacy, she said that there's certain things she can get at this pharmacy. Now, I asked her if my insurance would cover it because I'm working at Stop and Shop as a cashier. So I'm part time. So I'm not making $1,400 in a month, but that's how much it costs for a monthly supply. So I can't afford it. My insurance doesn't cover it at all. There is such a high demand for this weight loss product because of whatever's going on between the air, the food, the water, and the metabolic state of the anatomy at the moment. Um, Even Tia Frio, 1975, said he is at the maximum weight he's ever been. He said, I've been 175 pounds my entire life with very little weight differential. He said, and he's up, I think, around 202 pounds. And he can't lose it. He says, even if I stop eating, Nicole, he's like, it doesn't drop. I'm having the same exact problem. I ran consistently disciplined 2 hours, hour and a half to 2 hours a day, 7 months in a row, decreased caloric intake, and it still would not come off. I went down, I think, by 10 pounds. That was it, which is ridiculous. On top of, I ran through the pain until I broke the ankle, and then I physically just couldn't put weight on the limb any longer. So it's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of discipline. It's not for lack of, I mean, it's just the products in the area are not conducive to keeping weight off. I just watched Star Trek Voyager, the episode about the cloud, um, from the captain's log, from the captain's point of view, Janeway knowing about the hairdo, and I'm looking at her physique and I'm like, that is where I should be. And I know it. And I'm trying to get to that health paradigm, but I am not able to get to that level. And then there is some kind of medication now for it, but it's so absurdly expensive, I can't afford it. So now my quality and quantity of life has been diminished by what? Somebody else's project? I'm not real clear on this because this gets really confusing with the amount of complexity and complexion and circumstances that they just keep throwing more variables into my calcaneus calculus, and then I'm not even in control. If we're in like a fleet of spaceships, for instance, I'm having trouble in the nebula and inside of the ship that I was delivered to, um, with both of my parents still here and my grandfather prior to that. I'm in this flag system, and on the television, there is these new, like, it's almost like a new model agency of like reporters. They're children from elsewhere, somewhere. I mean, like, again, if they're in the holographic, because they are in the holographic universe, I know that they're attempting or claiming, oh my God, to broadcast out of New York, from the desk, but I don't know who hired them. I don't know whose network. I don't know whose anything that they're contracted with. But he is stating that we're having drug shortages in New York. And then I saw a piece where um, Cardinal Timothy Dolan, who's also part of the New York, one, our position in one of 48. He exists here at a high importance level. He is in Jerusalem, and they made a mention of him over there at the same time that they're airing this in New York about drug shortages. And while I'm experiencing these health problems myself, on the news, they don't specifically say which drugs are in shortage, but they say that it's over 300 of them. And when I haven't even gotten the proper diagnosis as to what's wrong with my legs and my cellular structure. Is it inflammation? Like, why they're not even giving me answers So this way I could narrow down, just so the GOD, the ONE, the TW knows in an ID, EGO to SUPEREGO, like construct of HCGH for like 1978.
Are sounding the alarm. A nationwide shortage involving more than 300 drugs is becoming critical. The shortage is blamed on supply and demand issues, an inability to get raw materials, and Big Pharma's lack of incentive to make those cheaper generic drugs. This is making treatments for cancer, diabetes, ADHD, and drugs needed for some life-saving surgeries harder to find, among others. One type 2 diabetes patient says she fears for her life.
I started and everything's going really good. And then all of a sudden, I can't get the dose that I'm on.
This is one of the worst times that we've had as far as we've been tracking, especially with the total number of ongoing and active shortages.
The FTC is investigating the shortage. Also, the Biden administration is pressing Congress to reward hospitals that buy drugs from a wider range of suppliers.
The New York City Council has passed a new legislation.
So there's conflict going on in the Middle East, that they're alerting on the televised portion or the broadcast portion. So I'm going to pause this and go back to that, because a drug shortage at the same time when there's conflict elsewhere. I don't know if there's some kind of link or tie in, but I'm just going to document it for this moment. I'm going to pause this for a second. All right, so what's going in internally is 1975, the bull from 1975 tried to get a state job. I'm not making comment either way. But he applied for it. He had to do fingerprints and a background check, and then was denied for it. So now he's going for a union job tonight. But it was with something called head injury, and it was out in Suffolk County. I'm not saying comment either way. It's just those are the facts that are lined up. At the same time, I'm going through my health problem. And it's been years of going through this health problem at this point, without relief or without any kind of being able to control my own health and paradigm, like to lose the weight, to live in the correct format for my build. And here's what's going on in the Middle East.
In the Mideast, Timothy Cardinal Dolan arrived in Israel from New York just a couple of hours ago, and he's already making headlines, telling our Josh Einiger just as he arrived that he'll be meeting with the Israeli president and the Palestinian Authority president during his trip. Josh got that exclusive interview live during Eyewitness News this morning at 10. He's live now for us from Jerusalem. Josh?
Sandra, greetings from Jerusalem. The Cardinal did make some news there. We'll get to that in a second. The sun is now setting here. It's 7 p.m., the beginning of Shabbat here in Israel. A holy weekend that should be restful, but there is a decided amount of unease here across the state of Israel because the whole region is waiting right now to see Iran's next move in this ever-widening conflict. At a speech marking the end of Ramadan this week, Iran's supreme leader vowed Israel must be punished for its attack on an Iranian embassy compound in Syria, saying it was like attacking Iranian soil. Public rhetoric like that has this whole region on high alert, high enough for the U.S. State Department to bar its Israel-based personnel from leaving the metro areas of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Even though there has been reporting in the Israeli press that Iran, through back channels, has indicated to the U.S. that its retribution would not escalate this wider conflict here in the Middle East. But of course, things here are ever harder to predict. And it was into this cauldron of unease that a familiar face touched down today. As you said, Sandra, Cardinal Timothy Dolan arrived for a week-long visit, highlighting and supporting Catholic-based relief efforts here. He also told me he would take separate meetings with the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, in Ramallah, and the president of Israel, Isaac Herzog. The Cardinal taking great pains to lend support to both sides of this bloody war.
One answer is to keep away from the extremes. So you got the extreme of Hamas, who literally want the extermination of Israel and Jewish people. There's one vicious extreme, okay? On the other hand, you got extremes that now want to get rid of Palestinians. Both of those extremes we have to avoid, don't we? It's sort of like straddling the Jordan River. You know what? We're trying to bring some sense of peace and security. The answer to that, I don't know. I know one of the answers, what it's not, is to listen to these extremes. Those voices got to be dulled.
The cardinal will also be meeting with the family members of hostages. Remember, there are still more than 130 people being held hostage, more than 30 of them believed to have been killed in captivity and whose bodies have still not yet been returned. The cardinal will be meeting with families of some of those hostages as well. And the hostages issue is still an enormous one here across Israel. Just this morning, we saw this vigil right outside the prime minister's official residence. About 50 people were there. There is great discontent growing with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. A lot of Israelis feel that his prosecution of this war has done little to bring the hostages home and has worsened Israel's image around the world and risen anti-Semitism around the world. We spoke to one Israeli who is from Monmouth County, New Jersey, who says Netanyahu has basically done Hamas's work for it.
I think the vast majority of Israelis are no longer behind him. Even those who would be behind him politically think that he's a colossal failure and that he doesn't care about what's going on. The fact that the hostages are still there and it's not on the primary agenda of the Israeli government, even though they may say it is, even though they may claim that that's what's important to them, it's not. They've created a mess. They've created a mess for years upon years, and now we're all going to suffer from the mess that this government's created.
A very difficult time here in Israel, of course, with growing unease about the state of the situation with Iran, as a country takes a break for the Sabbath, but wonders desperately what will come next. We are live in Jerusalem. Josh Einiger, Channel 7, Eyewitness News. Sandra, Pedro.
Josh, thank you for your reporting. We'll continue to check in with you throughout your visit there. Still to come on Eyewitness News at noon, a highly criticized curfew begins tonight in New Jersey's largest city. What parents and kids in Newark need to know.
So while Anthony was at this job interview earlier in the week for this company called Head Injury, as a driver of a bus, he said that it was a state job, so he was really excited because there's 403B and all sorts of stuff. But he said that the line in Hapog was like out the door. There were so many people that wanted to be hired for this position. And so again, for whatever reason, they decided not to hire him. So now he's forced into some like union relationship, and hopefully he will get that with something local inside of New York City. But again, I stay out of his business. It's just at the same time I'm having this health issue. There's drug shortages, and I'm having work issues, like being able to get income myself. He's still unemployed. And it's a real problem. And it's been a consistent employment problem since I've been younger. I can get, it's a real problem. And certainly an employment like into a field where like the income is sustainable and growth within an industry has not been available. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.